So we just saw how to use the model builder using the soils data. So now I'm going to go a little bit faster. Where soils data I went a little bit slower because we were learning how to use this the first time. I'm going to go down here and choose my select tool, and I'm going to create a hillshade now. So to create a hillshade, I'm going to go down here to the surfaces in the spatial analyst tool. So the first step is to locate the tool that you want to use, and I'm going to use hillshade, and then drag and drop it into my model builder model here. Once I drag and drop it inside of here, I need to connect an input to it. So in this case, a hillshade is really modeled from terrain information. So I'll need to go up here. I'm going to turn off soils and turn on my topography. Notice that I already have a hillshade. I'm just going to create another one. I'm going to grab my finished terrain here, put that in front of my hillshade, use my connect tool, and connect terrain to hillshade as an input raster. So the second step is to add my tool and my input and connect it. Step 3, I need to configure my tool. Oops. It says it's not licensed, and if you get an error like that, did you see that? Not licensed? That means that you need to go into here and you need to turn this stuff on. And remember that data interoperability takes a little while. Alright, now I can right click here and go to open, and I should be able to configure this tool. Remember, I don't need to do anything with input because I've already connected that input, but I do need to do things with everything else. So I'm going to call this hillshade, and I'm adding the number 2 after it because I already have one in there. The azimuth I'm leaving at default, the altitude I'm leaving at default, and I do want to model my shadows, and I don't need to exaggerate my Z factor. So from here I'll just click OK. So once you're done configuring the tool, sometimes you may need to add a processing extent. So if you do need to make a processing extent, and sometimes you may need to do that, for example, when you go to run the tool without the processing extent, and you find that it doesn't maintain that Marlette part, shape, or form, like maybe the right edge of it gets cut off, then you'll need to add a processing extent. So to do that, you'll need to right click on the hillshade, go to make variable, go to from environment, and then go down here where it says processing extent, and then choose extent. And then, well, let's just do that in this example. We'll make this little thing right here. And then you can right click on extent and choose open, and you can add an extent, and what you would add in here would be basically your area of interest. And then it should process up to that extent to get rid of any kind of weird output that you might get. So in this example I'm going to try to run it without, and hopefully it comes out clean. So that's step 4, set the processing extents if needed. Step 5, I need to run my model, so I'm going to right click here and choose run. And once I'm done, step 6 is to add the output to the display. So I'm going to right click here and choose add to display. And step 7 is to basically study the results. And this looks like exactly what I wanted. So going over the steps one more time on what I did. The first thing I did was to locate the tool, and then the second step was to add it to my model builder here and create all the necessary connections. Step 3 was to configure my geoprocessing tool. Step 4 was to set the processing extents if needed. Step 5 is to run the model. Step 6, add the output to display, and then step 7, study the results. So from here on out, we're just going to follow that 7-step procedure as we use each tool.